Okay, we're back. We were talking about this first little section that we had gone over and what he was talking about, and setting up your numbers in your in Alt U, which is your user settings. So I'm going to go back over that a little bit.
Dictionary. Occasionally you'll want to convert numbers after translation. Mark the number first, then click on the toolbar icon, or use the menu or the speed key, Control and the pound key together.
You see what it's telling you there? So if you wanted to convert it for you, that's all you have to do. Global it, which is what?
G.
Or Control G. Okay? And you global the whole thing that you want, so the whole stroke. So if it was, we'll just kind of go back.
Mark the number.
You know, the 36,508.3, and you want it converted, then that's what you do. Mark it, and you can press the icon, numbers, which will convert it, or the Control Shift 3, which is the pound sign. Okay?
First, then click on the toolbar icon, or use the menu or the speed key, Control and the pound key together. Here you see your number as it starts out, and as it would look depending on which format you choose. However, your numbers setting.
So if you want it in money, then you need to click money. If you want it in quantity, ordinal, Roman, generic, whatever. Okay? So when it comes in here, it's going to tell you what you input, what you globaled, what it's going to change it to, which is an ordinal because it has the TH at the end. Okay? Or do you want it in money, whatever? You understand that?
Will control, and so the gear icon takes you quickly to adjust those settings. Within these short presentations, it's not possible to show all that Eclipse automatic number conversion can do. So a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial is available on automatic number conversion.
Any questions about that? No? See, in these little things right here, you know, if you have internet set up, then you go to that, and it'll go to the internet and go to that little section that you need to go to when they're talking about certain things of, you know, like we were talking about earlier. Okay? So when it's asking you to go to a more in-depth tutorial or whatever, that's where it's going to take you. Okay? Any questions about that little section? Something that's really important in this number section is two things. The proper adjustment of the numbers section in the user settings. So if you go and do it now, push Alt U. Everyone, Alt U. If you're awake. You awake? You all? Did you Alt U? All right. And you're going to see that the numbers section right there. Okay? That's how you go to it, and that's what they're talking about here. That's the numbers section of the user settings. Okay? And another thing, which we're going to get into later, is cleaning up your dictionary when it comes to numbers. So if something isn't coming out right, more than likely it's something in your dictionary, or you haven't adjusted something in your user settings. Because if you set it up the way that I'm telling you, or getting ready to tell you as we go through this little section, then you're going to be okay. Okay?
Here are two quick examples of how to fine-tune your numbers settings. Your numbers settings. The numbers section of your user settings asks two general questions. First, how do you write numbers? So what do you even want number conversion to process? And second, What kinds of numbers do you want in words as opposed to digits? This first writer doesn't use the number bar and wrote the word "and" when it was heard. So ignore written numbers is not turned on, but process "and" as part of a number is turned on. For general quantity number,
You understand what it's telling you there? On those little user settings right then? I'm going to go back and kind of explain it.
what numbers do you want in?
So if you check this bar, this little box right here, it's always going to ignore written numbers. So if you write out all your numbers, but you want them in numerals, check that box. Okay? So if that's the way you learned, with the other theories, that's the way you do it. Okay? I know in some of the theories they don't teach you to use the number bar. And if you don't, then that's a box that you need to check. Okay? Pretty self-explanatory. Ignore written numbers. Okay? So it's always going to put written numbers in the number form and process "and" as a number. So if that's the way that you hear it and you write it that way, then you need to check this box. That when you have numbers and you write "and," like they say, $471. Well, I don't know if my brain just doesn't do it or hear it. I don't do it. I put $471. That's how I do it. But some people hear the "and" and write the "and," and that's okay. And sometimes you're right on top of them and they say 471 and 67 cents. That's okay. That's okay if you write the "and." You need to check this box though in the user settings, because if not, it's not going to know how to set it up. It's going to put the "and" in the middle of those numbers. Okay?
Words as opposed to digits. This first writer doesn't use the number bar and wrote the word "and" when it was heard. So ignore written numbers is not turned on, but process "and" as part of a number is turned on. For general quantity numbers, this user has Eclipse write out 1 through 10, but put 11 and above in digits.
You understand what it's saying there? Yes.
Yes.
No. Okay. It wants it to write out anytime it has 1 through 10. I don't agree with that, but whatever. If that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. And at a start, whether you wanted to change 1 through 100, clarify, on the millions, billions, thousands, stuff like that. Whether you want it in quantity, currency, and it's going to give you the different options. So if you want it in quantity and you always want it written out 1 through 10, then that's fine. But when it comes to currency, it's going to give you a whole new table of stuff. So every time you click one of these, it's going to give it different. So don't think that this changes it for all 3 of these, because it doesn't. They're all separate. Y'all understand that? Okay.
For currency,
What's that? On here, there's force separators in currency. What does that mean? It's not on there. I don't see it on there. But on mine, it's on there.
It says force currency.
Force separators in currency.
Force separators in currency.
Do you guys have that? Yeah.
I'll have to look at it. I'll look at it at the end of this thing.
do not write out any numbers, just use digits. And for ordinals, write out 1st through 10th. There are different settings for what to write out at the start of a sentence. And as of 1 million, Eclipse will use words to make large round numbers easier to read.
You understand what it was telling you there, like on the million, whatever? You don't want O-N-E, M-I-L-L-I-O-N, you know, whatever. It's not as easy to read, okay? So you want to make it as easy for the reader as you can. So you want it in numbers, okay?
This number bar user uses word strokes to indicate when a number from 1 to 10 should not be in digits. So ignore written numbers is turned on, and Eclipse is not being asked to write out any values.
You understand what it's telling you there on the no values? When you write it out, it's always going to write it out. When you put the numbers, it's always going to put the numbers. Okay?
Number conversion is treated at length in the efficient editing tutorial, so be sure to look at it. Here are 2 quick examples of how to indicate when a number from 1 to 10 should not be in digits. So ignore written numbers is turned on, and Eclipse is not being asked to write out any values. Number conversion is treated at length in the efficient editing tutorial, so be sure to look at it.
Okay. Any questions about that? No? I don't think I've ever used that. I'll have to mess with that a little bit and see what it does. Okay, here it's telling you on the number conversions, you know, click it on. If checked, it's really worth checking, okay? If on, if you use the number bar for digits, but use word numbers for 1 through 10, check it. In effect, you're limiting the scope of number conversions because you don't need quite as much help. You understand what it's saying? So if you know, and that's the way that I do it. You know, whether my brain works that fast, I don't know. But like, I know when to write numbers and when to write something out. You know?
You mean when to write digits?
When to write digits and when to write numbers out.
As a word?
Yeah, as a word. So whether I don't know.
You learn the rule well.
Yeah. And it just comes with time. You know, but if you didn't learn the number bar, then you're really going to have to pay attention to this section because it's really, really, really going to apply to you. Okay? It applies to everybody, but it's really going to apply to you if you stroke everything out. Okay? And it's just giving you an example, you know, twint, you know, for 20, if that's the way that you stroke it out, would not trigger automatic number conversions to digits, okay, because you stroked it out, okay? Process and as a number, if on and checked. If you can't keep from writing and when you hear it, as part of a number, then you need to check it. And that's what I was explaining to you guys just a second ago. So if you hear $437 and you write out 4 HUNAND 37 and then DLARZ, then you're going to need to check that, which is okay. I mean, it's no big deal. It just knows that it leaves the and out, puts the numbers together. Okay? Here it's just saying, you know, the digits on quantity. setting for 1 through 19. I mean, it's pretty standard. You probably won't need to change the default settings here. Time, the question here is how to describe hours without minutes. Do you prefer at 9 I'll dine, or at 9 I'll dine, or at 9 o'clock I'll dine? You know, it all depends on how you learn it, okay? If they say we're gonna dine at 9, the way that I write it is like this. I don't write it like this. Definitely don't write it like this. I was always taught when you put o'clock and you write o'clock, it's always the letters of the numbers. Does that make sense? So N-I-N-E is going to be the proper way to write it here. N-I-N-E, 9 o'clock, not 9 o'clock. Definitely not 9:00 o'clock, because the way that I was taught was that this means 9 o'clock already. But it looks better in time and easier for the reader to understand what you're talking about, that you're talking about in time, and not at 9 I'll dine. At 9 what? When 9 people arrive? When it just makes it easier to read and understand for the reader what you mean in time. That makes sense? Okay? N-I-N-E right here, o'clock. Now, you may learn it differently. I mean, the person that you go to work for, or the firm that you go to work for, may do it differently. And you're going to do it the way that they tell you to do it, is how you're going to do it. Okay? So, I mean, it doesn't matter how you learned it. If they want it a certain way and they want their jobs out a certain way, more than likely you're probably going to have to do it that way. Okay? Most of the time they're not real sticklers about that. I mean, unless it reads just totally different and you put this with this, you came to work for my firm, you wouldn't do it that way. Okay? But, I mean, that's just my preference. But, different people are different, so that's just kind of how it goes. So you just kind of have to feel it, for whoever you go work for. Okay, and here it's talking about, write out, when you write out certain numbers in general, what numbers should be written out, no values. If you have that checked on the no values, ignore written numbers turned on, then, this whole section is for you. 1 through 9, 1 through 10, 1 through 12, etc. There's plenty of choice. I mean, you can choose whatever you want. So be careful when you do all values, too, because, like they're saying right here, they haven't seen anyone who needs all numbers written out. That's not going to happen, okay? When you're doing money, time, stuff like that, it's not always going to be written out, so be careful with that. At the beginning of a sentence, I was always taught that you write it out. You write out the number. How many people went? 31. So it's TIRTY-ONE. Okay? Not 31. Okay? The only time that I do it, and whether it's correct or not, I don't really know, but for me it works. What time did you go? 9. You're not just gonna put a 9 out there. So I put the 9:00. Is the only time that I really do it. That's the only time that I really do it. Any other time, you want it written. I was always taught that you want it written out at the beginning of a sentence. Okay? And they're just kind of giving you examples of when it's easier to write out rather than put the numbers. You want it easier for the reader, okay? But, you know, and this is a lot easier to read. 5 million as opposed to 5 million. But say it's 5,437,000. Then you don't want it 5,437,000. You want it written out here. 5,437,000. Okay? But it's easier to read when they're just talking about 5 million. Rounded numbers. Good rounded numbers. Okay? Okay, here they're going to talk about dictionary cleanup. Getting maximum benefit from Total Eclipse's automatic number conversion capabilities involves fine-tuning your dictionary. So if it's not coming up, more than likely it's your dictionary or it's your user settings. Okay? Even if it means removing some counterproductive entries. When this is done, you will be able to write what you hear and let Eclipse interpret the numbers intelligently according to the context. Okay? Now let's consider a number of steno examples. How would you define, and on the older CAT system, and how they would define it on the new one. Okay? So here it's telling you how you would do it, how we used to do it. On the old CAT system, you had to make it a conflict because you didn't know whether you needed O&E or the number 1. In Eclipse, all you ever have to do is that. Spell it out. That's all you have to do. If you're in the right settings, in your right user settings, and your dictionary is correct, that's all you have to do, and Eclipse is going to do the rest. Okay? Does that make sense? This will convert to digits according to your quantity rules. If ignore written numbers is switched off, it will remain a written number if ignore written numbers is switched on. Okay? Make sense? Okay, now it's talking about dollars. You know, back in the day, this is how we had to define it. Dollars or money conversion with any number. Okay? Not anymore. Do not do it that way. All you have to do is write out dollars. And it'll know. Okay? It's already going to know what to do. And you don't have to do it before. Back in the day, you know, if we wanted to do dollar and you knew that it was coming up, we had to write dollars, then write out the number, then you knew to put it in as a dollar amount. You got to be on top of it, you know, to really know what's going on. So I mean, you know, now it's easier. You don't have to do it that way. All you do is just write the steno for dollars when you hear it spoken, not before. Where you write it also indicates decimal point positions if needed. Okay? So when they're saying $437.64, it already knows $437, decimal point, come back to the beginning, puts the money symbol, goes back, and already knows that you're getting ready to put cents, your cents in. Okay? Make sense? Okay, here, you know, they're talking about the old way of doing dollars. So if this is the way you write dollars is DZ, and it knows, you know, that it's going to do it that way, great, you know. If you have a habit of dragging the Z with your D, then you're going to have to create a conflict. I don't do it that way, you know, and I usually don't drag my Z with my ending D, so I'm, you know, my finger's pretty strong there, so I'm pretty lucky. So I just have it defined as dollars. But if you don't, then you have to define it as ED also, okay? Create a conflict. But it'll know when it comes with a number, then it'll already know, okay? So when you write $5, Eclipse already knows this entry is only needed if you write $5 in one steno stroke. Okay, so if you do it as one stroke, 5DZ, then this is the way that you need to define it. Okay, but if not, then it's just going to be FIVE, $5, and it's going to know to convert it. Okay, but if you write it in one stroke, then this is the way that you need to do it. All right? So if you do it this way, $5, this is the way that we used to do it. You don't need to do that anymore. And if you have it in your dictionary that way, if you got your dictionary from someone else and it's in there that way, then you need to remove that entry and redo the entry for that. Okay? Only dollars needs to be defined. Okay? So 5 should already be the FIVE. Same thing with cents. Okay? Some people do it this way when they say 10 cents, 10s, then this is the way you define it. Okay? Make sense? No pun intended. But that's how. All right. Here's just kind of giving you different examples of, you know, 100, whatever. You don't need to do the caret 00 like we used to do in the old day. Not needed. All you need to do is the 100. Just write it out, 100, and it already knows what to do. So if you have a number with it, then it's going to know to convert it to this. 700, it's already going to know 700. Okay? Same thing with that. 101. So if it's 401, same way. 100 only needs to be defined, and then 1 stands on its own. Also as ONE. Okay? Several hundred, same way. You just stroke it out, put it in there as 100 and several. If you do $100, and this is the way that you do it, if you stroke it like that, does anybody stroke it like that? Really? Wow, that's pretty good. You know, if you're fortunate enough to be able to do it that way, then, you know, this is the way that you define it. $100 or $100. So you can do it either way. Okay? This is probably the easiest way here. Okay? Same thing with 1,000, 1,001, 25,000. You know, the same thing. All you have to do is define 1,000. Same thing with $1,000. Million is the same way. You just stroke it out, million, $1 million. So it's just giving you different examples. I don't know if any of you guys stroke it like this, MLDZ for $1 million. If you do, make sure $1 million is defined, okay, as $1 million. If you do the decimal point, you know, if they say 0.5, this is the way you define it. Bracket, decimal, bracket. And that tells it that that stroke right there is going to be a period instead of the stroke of point. Like say, what's the point? Well, it may already have in your dictionary that somebody already put it in there without the T because they've done it that way. Maybe they have a weak, you know, last finger or whatever. So they have it in the dictionary as point. But you want POIN to be defined as your decimal point. If they're saying, you know, well, how many milligrams of Benadryl did he take? 0.4 milligrams. You know, if not, then you're going to have point, POINT, 4 milligrams. Okay? Make sense? Here they're telling you, like on time, if you do 9 a.m., I do AM, PM with the asterisk. So that's what makes it different for me. So it automatically puts it as AM, PM. But if you don't, and you hear it the same way, and you write AM, PM the same way, then you're going to have to create a conflict and put it as that. Did you mean 9:30? Am I going? Because then it's not going to know. You know, it might think that you meant AM, and if you defined it as AM, then it's going to put it as AM when you meant M. Make sense? 5 p.m. the same way. Okay, now on o'clock, you know, people do it and stroke it differently. This is the way I do it. It already knows to put it as o'clock. Okay? But if you do it this way, and you can do it 1K, 2K, 3K, 4K, 5K, whatever, all the way up to whatever K, then this is the way that you need to define it. Okay? As the number G, the letter G, and then o'clock, telling it that it's going to be in time. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier. You know, you want to be careful the way that you define it, because what the difference is when you put this and this will never result in something like 7 o'clock. Because like I was telling you guys, the way that I learned, some people consider it as 7 o'clock, because it's already 7 o'clock and then o'clock. Okay? So you want to be careful the way you define it, because you don't want it to come out like this. To me, this is the wrong way. That's the wrong way of doing it. But if that's the way you do it, whatever. And I'm just telling you, you know, a lot of people view it that way, as 7 o'clock. Same thing with miles an hour. miles, and it's all just written out. Miles, miles an hour, miles. You know, if you go to different countries and they're talking about dollars in pounds, you know, how much is it? It's 25 pounds. You know, it will automatically replace a hyphen if the singular measurement pound is preceded by a number greater than 1. Okay? So make sure that your steno has been defined for pound. Hyphen is the same way. You know, the old way we had to do it that way. This way it's like this. So if it's 7-4, you know, whatever. You do the 7, HF, 4. It already knows, you know, whether you write it out or not, it's going to put it in the context that it needs to be. So, you know, be careful whether you're putting it in numeral form or whatever, and have your settings correct on your user settings. Does that make sense? Same thing with a slash. You know, when you're changing to ordinals is the same way. You know, if you want to do first, second, whether you want it to be first or first, this is the way that you write it out. Okay? You know, so the way that I do it is 1E. We were taught that the E changes it to ordinal. First, you know, is 1E, second is 2E, third is 3E, fourth, 4E. So, you know, you add the E with it, and that changes it to the ordinal. Okay? But however you learned is fine. You need to go? Okay. Let me come down here. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and stop right there. I want you guys to use this number stuff this week, the stuff that we learned. If you have to go back over that section, go back over the section and learn the numbers. I know that we kind of covered a lot of stuff tonight, so, you know, be sure and cover that section. Guys, I'm telling you this for a reason, you know, and, you know, whether you use it or not, it doesn't really matter to me. I hate to put it that way, but, you know, I'm kind of a no-nonsense, no sugar, I'm not a sugar coater at all. So you guys are paying to take this class to learn how to use this stuff. Now, whether you do what I tell you to do, honestly, it doesn't really matter to me. It doesn't.
The lesson from last week, I don't think we're doing that yet, right? The speakers, we're not doing that yet, so we can't.
But you can still practice it. It doesn't matter whether you're doing it or not. Practice the stuff. Just practice it. You know, just do it so that when we do, because we're going to come back over all of these sections at the end, and you're going to have to know how to do all of it. Okay? So that's why I'm telling you, use it now. Regardless of whether you're using it in class, I don't really care. I'm doing this for a reason. We're going over this stuff for a reason so that you learn it now. And that we don't have to spend a whole lot of time at the end kind of, you know, going over the stuff again. Oh, well, I don't remember what the thing was for speaker identification and changing it. And what's that? What's a function you go to for speakers? F2. Well, you didn't know that because you didn't really mess with it, you know? So that's what I'm telling you guys. Mess with it a little bit. I'm not telling you to spend hours upon hours. Mess with it a little bit. Get to know it a little bit. Know what the different things are. If you want to change the colors, if you want to change the up and down, you know, stuff, you know, and even, you know, on some of the number stuff. The number stuff you are going to use. So, you know, that's why I say, you know, use this stuff as much as you can, okay? So remind me next week that this is where we are for words written out and stuff like that, okay? All right, guys.